It was our final dress tech rehearsal before opening night of Tales of Mother Goose, and things were not going well. The show itself was super charming. It was quirky and a little irreverent and really funny, lots of song and dance, but what was going on backstage was total chaos and drama. I think a lot of the problem had to do with the fact that we'd been rehearsing at this off-site space for 4 weeks. So giant space with no scenery, no costumes, and for me, best of all, the children in the cast, there were 21 of them, they were sort of quarantined at the side under the supervision of a couple of these parent volunteers. While the rest of us, these 7 adult professional actors, could do our thing. So here we were now, all in the theater, all on stage, and just huge amounts of scenery, and there were the costume changes. And I know this is going to sound, I guess, ageist and maybe a little arrogant, but I blamed the problems on the children, and I felt somehow, as one of the 7 adult actors in the show, that it was incumbent upon me to instill in them some discipline. Also, not to sound boastful, but as one of only 2 members of the Actors' Equity Union, I felt particularly driven to get these kids in line. So this was a very, very long rehearsal day, and at every chance I had, and there were a lot of chances, I was like barking commands at them and just these sort of one-word criticisms. But the problem was that I hadn't bothered to learn any of their names over the past 4 weeks. So most of what I said, they're just sort of these random invectives at the kids, and nobody seemed to be paying much attention, which is really irritating to me. At some point, this is, I don't know, hours into rehearsal, the moon had gotten caught on the giant shoe, the one that housed the old woman with so many children. She didn't know what to do, and the stage manager had to call a break. And while they were untangling the wires of the moon, the kids were just, hanging off the shoelaces. And at that point, it was like, I just, if you don't stop what you're doing, somebody's gonna get hurt. And, just said, like, to just general. And I know that sounds a little like a veiled threat, but it's not how I meant it. What I was trying to convey was that would be the tragic and inevitable outcome. Eventually, the moon was put into place, and it was time for my big scene as Little Miss Muffet. And so I grabbed my props and ran on stage. The lights came up as I'm sitting on the tuffet and started to eat my curds and whey. And then, of course, along came the spider. The spider, who was played by, was like a large puppet manipulated by an actor behind the tuffet. And but the way that Miss Muffet was written in this play, the way that I played her, it wasn't that she was afraid of the spider. She did not run away. I was just irritated. And it felt just like an intrusion. But on this particular day, I felt possessed of a rage I had never known. And I took the spoon that for eating, and I just started wailing on the spider, trying to break its little legs. And we had kind of some choreography, but this time I was running around the tuffet, running around. Finally, I ducked behind it and popped my head up, but just a little too close, and smashed the bridge of my nose on this metal beam that was bolted into the back of the set piece. And I must have yelled something, fuck, really loudly, which, if you know the children's theater's history, is the wrong word to use. The stage manager called a stop to it. The stage hands ran out, and I was spurting a lot of blood. But they put cotton up my nostrils and the bandage that got me cleaned up. And then the rehearsal went on. ironically, the next role I was playing was of a kitchen maid who gets her nose pecked off by one of the 4 and 20 blackbirds who'd been baked in the pie. We got through rehearsal that night. I drove myself to the emergency room. They did an x-ray, and I had, in fact, broken my nose. But they said, it's not out of place. There's really nothing we can do to just ice it and expect bruising. So the next day was opening. I made no eye contact with any of the children. I did not speak to anyone. I just kind of minded my own business, and the show went off. The show went well. Eventually, the swelling on my face got smaller and smaller, but I would say most significantly, it was my massively inflated ego that got right-sized. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Kathy.